Hey, it's time for another movie in my Forgotten Classic series. This one is a 1950s Italian movie, Notti Bianche. Sorry, I butchered my Italian. There have been to Italy many times. I love it, and this movie is just wonderful. Really appreciate it. Let's see why I think this is a Forgotten Classic, why you should watch it, coming up next. So White Nights, as it's called in the English translation, is a movie by the director Luchino Visconti, the great Italian director who did The Leopard. I did a video on that movie. And this movie is an adaptation of the Dostoevsky short story written early in Dostoevsky's career, and it has some of that feel of longing and existentialism and the freedom and romanticism of the characters, but they're pining for something more and they're wanting for something more. Those tones and even the theme of longing and existentialism pervade the entire movie. Now, this movie was made in 1954. The plot takes place over a series of nights in a city. What's funny is that I got this movie by accident. Via interlibrary loan, I requested Fellini's Nights of Cabiria, and by accident, the library shipped me this movie. I said, okay, I'll go ahead and watch it. What's bizarre about that is that both Nights of Cabiria and White Nights were made or released in the same year. They're about protagonists at night, taking place over a series of nights, and there's all kinds of similar themes in these movies. It's remarkable. I guess it must have been the zeitgeist at the time. These two movies are very similar. I strongly recommend watching this movie for no other reason than the cinematography and the sets and the look of this movie. It is just gorgeous, I think. And I only had a DVD copy. I mean, when they make a Blu-ray copy of this and digitize it, clean it up, this movie is going to be fabulous. It's got the noir look of classic Hollywood movies from, say, the 30s and 40s. But it's also got this airy, romantic, lighter feel, too, and it combines both those elements in a shadowy city. The set was entirely built from scratch, and it actually fooled my eye for a little while. I thought, well, is this taking place in Venice or some kind of Italian city? And no, once you see the backdrops in this movie, you go, okay, that's fake. But the remarkable quality of this movie, it's got this look of reality and unreality. You can see at times it's not real, but sometimes you're tricked into, believing it's real, even when you know that it's unreal. Remarkable. So it sits between the world of the real and unreal. Perfect, I think, for a Dostoevsky story especially. Now, what's the plot of the movie? There's really not a lot of plot. A man shows up in this city, and he's in the city, and he's new there. He's a stranger. It's basically the common story of the stranger comes to town. And at night, after he meets a dog running around the streets and the dog won't communicate with him, that's pretty important, he sees this woman crying all by herself. Well, this man and this woman strike up a relationship, and will they become lovers or not? Will they become friends? It's that love triangle problem. The woman is actually crying because her lover left her and hasn't come back for, I think it's been a year since this man has left. And you're going to hear her backstory intercut through this movie, as well as the two of them in a succession of nights meeting each other, talking to each other, and thus it has this romantic air about it. It's really wonderfully done, this romance adaptation of Dostoevsky, who my guess is far more sympathetic with the female, and the male protagonist is, focused on in the short story, whereas this movie, the pair of them, and they're both, you don't really always know what to feel about either one at different times. They're messing with each other sometimes, and so I think there's a little bit more individuality in the characters, perhaps, in the short story. Although you should read the short story and watch this movie and compare them. I think the faces of the three main characters in this movie are absolutely perfect for these roles. I can't even imagine anybody else inhabiting them, and the faces stand out against the black backdrop of the city and the shadows, and sometimes the faces are lit, and you want to identify the faces because these are archetypal characters. These are fairly generic characters, and yet you really grasp onto the personalities here. At least I did. And so the man in this movie, Marcelo Mastroianni, a very famous actor, is in Fellini's movies, for example, 8½. And the woman is Maria Schell, and she's great in this movie. Just the look of them, and they make sense together, and they inhabit their characters well. So I think, as I'm arguing, just for the look of this movie, along with some of the music going on here, I think you will enjoy this movie. Especially that this might be a decent date movie, or a movie for both males and females with different interests and tastes to watch. I think everyone will get something out of it if you like, that is, classic movies. Now, I haven't said much about what this movie's about, except to hint that it's about existentialism, the freedom of these characters to be in the city and to live in the moment and do as they please, but knowing they got to go back during the day and do whatever they do, and knowing that time is going to end, their fun times together and their enjoyable sort of quasi-romantic relationship. We know time is going to end all things. And so this existentialism in the movie is at once liberating, as existentialism tends to be. You're free to choose, and that's the great value of it. But also that all things are going to come to an end. You're going to grow old. You're going to, part ways with each other. And the unique individuals in this movie are lonely. Right? At the end of this movie, I think that's the general feeling, lonely romanticism. And that's like a lot of other movies you've probably watched. In fact, that's a hallmark of 20th, even 21st century movies from at least the U.S. and Europe, probably all over the world, is lonely, estranged, alienated figures in a romantic environment. It pretty much sums up a lot of movie history, actually, and the feel and tone and the zeitgeist of the last 100 years of movies. I think this movie captures it well, though. So for that reason alone, I'd say this is a forgotten classic by Visconti early in his career. If you like him, if you like Italian cinema, and this is quasi-neo-realistic, although it's sort of taking a step into the realm of fantasy, you might actually enjoy this movie. Have you seen this movie? Have you thought about watching it? What are your questions? What do you think about this movie? Let us know in the comments, please. And please subscribe to my channel for more great movie content. Thank you and have a great day.